Wait. Oh, no. No,
We're live.
We're live. Hold on. We're going to start with the thing.
Love is only true fairy tales. Meant for someone else, but not for me. All love was out to get me. That's the way it seemed. Disappointment haunted all my dreams. Then I saw her face. Now I'm a believer. Not a trace.
You know whose face is off? You know whose face we saw? Lakshmi. We pulled this card. There we go. We pulled this card before we kind of started our discussion today about what we were going to talk about and our personal experience over the week. Before, once again, we didn't even really look at the chapter that we were going to be discussing. Oh, should I say that? But anyway, and it turns out it's recovering a sense of abundance. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with the Hindu pantheon, the goddess Lakshmi is all about wealth, resources, and what we value, which is also really interesting considering that we're currently in full moon in Taurus, and Taurus is also that kind of Lakshmi energy about resources, earthly values, the things, possessions, all of that stuff. So, synchronicity abounds.
We're starting off with synchronicity and then heading into synchronicity, and everything's in line. When I take my shower, it's in line. When I eat my breakfast, it's in line. Everything is lining up perfectly right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that little song was just because the very first line of this chapter is, "I'm a believer," Nancy declares. "I just don't believe God gets involved with money." And I feel like that probably echoes a lot of people's feelings about it. So this week is all about looking at your belief systems around money and creativity and art, and whether or not those belief systems are accurate, helpful, or really holding you back from trusting that what the creative impulses that you have are in fact divinely supported and will support you on an earthly level as well, that your needs will be met.
Yes. And I also would say those belief systems aren't necessarily religious based or anything. I think they come much more from a cultural background. At least for me, I found a lot of my blocks were these beliefs that I felt others had given me.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, my parents, I think those are probably the main influences on us when it comes to our unconscious beliefs about money, subconscious patterns that we have in terms of worry or not overspending or holding back, whatever our self-sabotaging money patterns are, probably are not coming from our own feelings about it, but it's what we were raised in and how we saw those things.
Totally.
We're just kind of repeating those patterns from our parents. And so we can have a lot of forgiveness and compassion and love for our parents because everybody's doing their best. But then we can say, oh, that's not mine. I'm not going to take that with me anymore. I'm going to release that. I'm going to modify that, and I'm going to vote for a better belief system, a better interpretation of my relationship to money and creativity's relationship to money and what money represents and all of those things, and make sure that it's all working in my best interest.
Mm-hmm. That's such a great way to put it. Yeah, everything going in your best interest. Once you put creativity in alignment as your goal, then your money will also line up as well. If you actually give it the time.
Yeah. And I mean, I totally understand people's resistance to this idea. I still struggle with it. And I also want to acknowledge my privilege in discussing these topics, because it's a lot easier. So, and to me, what privilege actually looks like is an easier access to the imagination, to the idea that my needs will be met, because that has been my experience more so than people of color or anyone who has not had the same privileges that I have had.
That's a great lens to give.
Oh, it's important. And I acknowledge for everyone that this book is dated in certain ways as far as that stuff goes. And it's really important to me that we acknowledge that we've come a long way, you know, that we're more aware of things. And I bet even Julia herself would hopefully has grown, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's I think it was published first in the 80s maybe, or 90s. It's been a while. So, you know, there are ways that we need to have compassion and acknowledge that, you know, just because people aren't able to accept some of these ideas right away, not passing any judgment about that, and really understanding and just being supportive of the ways that you can continue to support a system that gives everyone equal access to the idea that they are supported and valued, valuable, right? I mean, imagine if because of your race or any other, your sexual orientation or whatever it might be, that you are told over and over and over again that you are not valuable, and how that would affect your ideas about being supported financially, about what you are able to do in this world and be supported. It would dramatically affect that. So
we all bring so much different things to the table, like, and have such different preferences. But I feel like if you are looking in to this process and there is a door that is open, like, you know, and, you know, we were talking about this earlier, how we can't force this process on anyone, but we are thankful for those who are who are interested in wanting to listen. And we've both been moved by so much by it. So even if there's a little crack in your door, a little crack in your schedule, a little crack in your, and for me, time is money too. So when it comes to, you know, we often have to give that up. Like, are we going to give up, you know, choosing to hang out with our friends or work another shift here or there? And time is truly equates to money and worth, and how we spend our time is in our downtime is so integral to us, and how we find what that is for us. I couldn't tell anyone, like, don't watch TV, do this instead. Like, you know, I don't know what your day has been like, and what you're doing. Like,
you might be working 3 jobs and taking care of 5 kids. And like, you know, I'm certainly not here to pass any judgment on anyone's ability to let these ideas in or not. All I have is my experience. And my experience has been that my belief systems around money and my working with those and digging into them and then consciously reframing and trying to modify those, that has been effective for me in a lot of ways, I think largely in my feeling free to invest in my creativity and in my growth. That's been kind of the biggest thing, is allowing myself that, and from that seeing all the doors that open from there, in a very synchronistic fashion. Because it's like, I think money is time, but it's also energy. So you know, when you place energy into, especially if it's an authentic creative expression, right? I mean, you've really done the work to find what's really trying to come forward, and then you show yourself, your deeper self, your higher self, God, however you think of it, you show that whole thing. I value this and I want to put energy here. it sets things in motion.
It does. And, you know, depending on our means, we start from whatever is available.
Yeah,
often.
you don't have to spend a lot. I mean, any bit. You invest a few dollars. You invest your time.
Yes, you invest your time, exactly. You know, it's the same thing as like my husband has been talking about how he's interested in wood turning from, like, he apparently watches videos after video after video. He's been giving, I would think, some kind of subconscious/conscious time into dedicating into that.
That's awesome.
And then doesn't feel like he's ready for the wood turner, but I see him talking more vocally about, I want to whittle with that wood. I want to play with wood more.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we begin. You can start with a scrap that you find on the street,
mm-hmm.
and you're just playing with it in front of the TV, like with your downtime.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where this play comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no great, huge artwork I'm making yet. I'm just starting at the bottom.
Yeah, but it's amazing how
mm-hmm.
those limiting beliefs about money will prevent you from doing that little thing. Because you're like, oh, well, I can't because I need this big expensive piece of equipment and I can't afford that, so I'm just not even going to bother. So that's why it's so important, even if, you don't have the means to invest in this big piece of equipment or this software that you feel like you want eventually, still looking at those beliefs and making sure that you are checking in, that you trust that is a possibility for you, and then prove to yourself that it's worth investing in that. That's the biggest shift.
This is definitely where we are accessing our inner child too.
Yes.
Like, I remember asking for things and my parents saying, no, we can't afford that. And then me going, okay, well, then I'm going to play with like this thing, or I'm going to try and recreate this thing, or like, I remember going down into like the muddy bank near our house in the little creek and making my own little ceramic bowls, because like,
and it just work with what you have.
Exactly. And so I feel like some of these things are not a negative if we change the perception of like, well, I can't give up that time, or I can't give up that money to do that, so I'll deal with it this way. But that opens up. You're opening up to the greater energy.
Yeah, and then it opens. I think that creativity will flow into ways that you can get that money.
Yes. Yes.
Like, once you start doing the thing with what you have, and then it becomes there's more energy around that work, then your creativity will start to work towards finding ways to get you the tools.
And things will fall in. Maybe it's at a garage sale.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of that, it's like you actually know what you're looking for now.
Right.
And you see it and you go,
and you think you're worth it. Like, you believe in yourself that it's worth the investment.
You're like, this is $5 for this piece of equipment. I still have all this embroidery thread that people got rid of from their old hobbies that I think I gained this abundant source from someone realizing that this wasn't for them and maybe like overindulged. I benefited from that, but they seem to not be upset to let it go, which is wonderful. That's an abundance in itself right there. Not to be afraid to let things go.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that you should.
Okay, I wanted to end with this.
Okay.
Part, and then we'll move on to the next section. So this little quote from the chapter: what we really want to do is what we are really meant to do. When we do what we are meant to do, money comes to us, doors open for us, we feel useful, and the work we do feels like play to us. Right? So that's why I was telling Ginny how I had this moment on the beach, which is kind of my artist state that I do consistently, is going for walks there. And I just had this heart-opening moment where I felt the truth that when we are aligned with our purpose and with God or divine or higher self, however you think of that is the most joyful expression. Like, even beyond what we're capable of imagining, that level of joy, it's even more joyful than that. And just entertain that possibility. Like, what if surrendering to what you really want to do, like trusting that what you want is also what God wants, right? And even bigger than that, like, it's even beyond what your imagination is telling you want, it's probably even better than that.
Yeah.
And just trusting that so fully and knowing that you'll be supported if you are willing to look honestly at yourself, honestly at what it is that's trying to be born within you, what is trying to come forward, and just being willing to engage that and say, yes, I will give it and I trust. I surrender and I know that it will be joyful, playful. It will be the most amazing expression of my life to do that. It's not going, so that surrender is not out of like a duty or a service. I was thinking about church and my upbringing in church and how like dull and stifled and rigid that interpretation of God was, and thinking about being a servant of God or doing life that way, and how it just felt like the most boring thing I could ever imagine. And it was out of this sense of like discipline and duty. I'm gonna, because it's the right thing. And just watching all of those ideas fall away, and instead engaging with this idea of surrendering, being a servant, as meaning like that you get to have the most fun and be the most joyful and playful and radiant expression of yourself, like what you really want. Like, what a beautiful.
And so much of that is like figuring out like, what do I want? And that's where these pages come from. Like,
that's what this work is.
And
God's work.
It's amazing. You put in a few minutes.
It doesn't take a lot.
It doesn't take a lot. No. And when you really get into it, like I think they say, really a page and a half in, you're like, oh, like these things of what I want start to come out. And then when you keep up the practice, like with any ritual, you see the pattern, and then it's justified. And then you see the synchronicity that's happening today, which goes, for me, my synchronicity actually goes into this next section here called luxury, which is, I underlined this one phrase here that's in the first paragraph. Because art is born in expansion, in a belief in sufficient supply, it is critical that we pamper ourselves for the sense of abundance it brings us. I love that so much. And then the rest of this chapter really gets into different ways in which we can pamper ourselves as an artist. And this is something that I feel like has always been a sticky concept for people today with these. We have like a generation divide about the words self-care, self-love, and then what that means. And I know that for some in the older generation, those words are scary because it could mean selfish, or and I think that connects to an old fear too of artists as well. Is like, if I invest in myself, I won't be able to give to the other people I have to provide for in my life. And so this part really speaks to me into my own little like background fear of like, oh well, like I can't buy this. I don't. I have to save this money for this other thing that might or might not happen, or and some of those thoughts are rational, especially when the price tag is like isn't about $30 and below, but at least in like the dance world, like getting up into the several $100s. It's like, well, what can I make do? What can I give myself instead to fulfill that task?
Because really, the amount that you spend is not what makes something feel luxurious.
Totally.
It's the quality of the gift, what it really, that's again kind of coming back to what this full moon is all about, which is really looking at what we value and what
it Lakshmi again.
Yeah, like what value do things actually bring? How does it? So like we were talking last week about quality of downtime, right? So you could spend several $100s on some new clothes. But what is the quality of the luxury, or the how does that actually enhance your day versus maybe a $3 bouquet of lilies, or
getting some cinnamon to put on your coffee,
right?
Or like something really little, a little bit of chili powder in your coffee to make the day a little bit more exciting.
Maybe some new music.
New music, or being brave enough to listen to the Spotify recommended list that I'm always like, I have my inner rebel going me like, I'm like, no, you don't know what you're talking about, computer. I know what I like. And then I listen to, I'm like, computer, you're really good at this. You know exactly what I like. And that's a luxury too, like jumping away from these little fears that we have Ooh. Hello, Jacob. A lot of money on something and thought it was going to be so happy, but didn't enjoy. I told buyer's remorse over and over again. Yes. I think the one thing I've never had buyer's remorse over is our little camper because of the experiences it brings us, and then my animals probably. So, like, which is weird. I mean, it's the adoption fee, but I've never regretted that adoption fee.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I would say too, in terms of the little things that we can give us as artists, they don't need to be expensive.
No.
They're just these little luxuries, and it just makes you feel good. It's this little cozy thing, and it doesn't have to be done through money. Maybe you're giving time somewhere.
Right.
And this is really where you can start to feed into these artist dates that you're taking once a week. So I don't know with the people watching here if how far you're into this process, or if you've been doing the artist date once a week. This is the luxury that I continue to deny myself, even though I know I need it the most. And it's the luxury of time. And dedicating that time to my artist date. Right now I'm using weather as an excuse, which is BS. The weather is actually not that bad.
Well, and there's, it forces you to get creative about
Exactly.
indoor activities.
Exactly. And so mine involve honestly going to the park and sitting with myself, and I come up with little stories about things that I see. And that's yeah, it's a very Beatrix Potter kind of hobby of mine.
Yeah, no, but the artist date is the perfect time to really explore luxury, and what that looks like for you, and what makes you feel luxurious, like,
and that will feed it.
Cared
Totally.
for. It's all about, that's the value, is how cared for do you feel nourished by that investment, whatever it is. And typically the things, like for me, clothes have always been a big kind of like wolf in sheep's clothing. Like, I think it's gonna make me feel better, and it usually doesn't. And I spend a lot of money on it, and the value that it adds isn't.
I feel like that's why I started to thrift so much, is I know that feeling of like I'm not going to get my full return. So at least if I can get it for under $5, then I can return it without the guilt that's associated with keeping something. I already have a garment that I am already feeling guilty about keeping.
But what does nourish me is being creative, making something, right?
Yeah.
So if I invest in maybe some supplies for a creative project, it's that sense of having done something constructive and productive at the end. And it was my artist state that really showed that to me. It was my birthday, actually. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do for my birthday, where, normally maybe you would buy yourself something or take yourself out to a fancy dinner. I decided to make a video and be creative.
And that was so beautiful.
And it was very fulfilling and satisfying.
So gorgeous. And yeah, Jacob, okay, so you're on week 3. That's a good week. We're currently on week 6, but there's, no competition, the same overlapping themes for sure. But it can be hard to stick with the pages, even though I bet at your point you're starting to feel the purpose and the success of it. If you do stick to it, you're starting to see the patterns forming, but it's very hard. I think this week I was 4 out of 7. 4 out of 7. Not good for me, but not the worst. What about you?
Yeah, no, I think I'm less than that still. I'm still doing
a tough week. But we're starting off this next cycle with the full moon, so we have all these abundant times. I also found that doing it, for me, I do a lot of work in the morning. I work from home. So I actually found that for me, I have like a different mindset period after my work sort of flow ends. And it kind of feels like a new day. And I don't know if you guys ever have this feeling.
Yes.
Where, you work and then you come home, you're like, the day just began.
Yeah.
You like, if someone asks you about how your day was, you completely forget. I actually find that sometimes I just am more in line with it to feel like my artistic day has begun now. And I start with that. And it helps with the mindset. It's actually sometimes nice not to have that break of work in between.
yeah, I find I enjoy doing them right before I have a little stretch of time that's maybe open, or, that I'm going to be working on creative projects, because it really helps me get clear about what my priorities are typically, or it will provide some moment of insight that launches me directly into the work.
And it always does. And it can be really frustrating when you go to your job and can't do the outlet yet.
Right.
And so if I can do it after, it always becomes productive. So I understand where she's coming from. Julia Cameron does believe that writing as soon as you wake up helps to clarify your day. But perhaps she is also working on a different schedule and her mind is operating on a different
I think
too.
Altering, adjusting as it works for you.
Yeah, totally. And then it's kind of all leading into that sense of abundance again. Like, I do have an abundance of time. I do have an abundance of time in which to do this. And it's just changing our mindset. And that's a luxury as well. Totally. And she actually talks, like, I say change mindset, but she actually does use shift in consciousness quite a lot. And then, what did I underline here? Beware of silly as a word. You toss at yourself. Yes, artist dates are silly. That's the whole point. She says creativity lives in paradox. Serious art is born from serious play.
Play.
That's so good.
The luxury of play.
The luxury of play. That is true luxury right there.
It is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like, to be able to put the seriousness aside and say, I'm going to play with Play-Doh. Oh my gosh. Or to get yourself a coloring book, not the adult coloring books. I'm talking about the big-eyed, like, cat, like Lisa Frank knockoff coloring books, and then get yourself some big fat markers. And then,
it's amazing the resistance that comes from that stuff. For me personally, playing it's really hard for me to get there.
Yeah, I understand that too. And I feel like whatever schedule works for you, Jacob, too, like, definitely there's no judgment there. As long as we show up for the work, the product will come, the energy will come. It's just, and once again, sinking into our abundance. I just love that. Everything is in such alignment right now. And then she goes into some exercises and kind of for the rest of this chapter 6. And I don't know if you've seen my channel, Jacob, but we do have a week 3 in here somewhere.
So we've had these videos for each week of the process.
Yeah. So I don't know if that will help you out at all to have a more clear line. But you're also welcome to join us every time. We're happy to have you here in our book club, in our cluster. Our clusters. And then she goes into I would say all of these exercises go into really talking about your favorites and helping you to find out what you want and what you like.
Yeah, because I think finding what really makes you feel good and luxurious and playful takes some trial and error.
It does.
So she gives you a few ways of digging into that, kind of exploring that. I think I'm seeing here clearing, getting rid of stuff. That's a big one for me. When things are really simple and clean and I have just my favorite things and not an excess of stuff around, makes me feel really
I remember reading about that too, like I read some article.
Marie Kondo.
Or minimalism is a true luxury. It's another article I read, is that not feeling like you have to stock up on things. And that stocking up does come from like a fear mindset. You think that buying more things would mean that you're more abundant, but not being afraid that you'll run out or knowing that you can get it again. That's like comes from a whole different abundance mindset.
Yeah, that's presence too. It's like, what do I need now? What makes me feel good now?
We got rid of our couch and have 2 recliners, small recliners, because we live in a very small house. And it's the same thing. Like, we were like, well, we don't, like, people don't come over enough to warrant having to get furniture for them. Like, let's just have furniture for us. We don't have a dining table because we don't sit at a dining table.
Yeah, exactly. Not conforming to your own expectations. Would you like me to pull a card?
So we're going to pull some synchronicity out of today from the Good Tarot. It's upside down. The Good Tarot. It might still be upside down.
Yeah.
With my packaging is worn off. Yeah, awesome, Jacob.
We like pulling cards around here.
We do. We like to start and end with it, I feel. Start off camera, end on camera.
All right. Shuffling these all around. I'm gonna do a nice little cut here. You can't see, I could be stacking the cards. Let's see. And then I'm going to pull this top one.
What do we have here?
Upside down.
It's 3 of Earth. It's an earthy day. I pulled Earth earlier today.
Yep. All about those resources, and.
All right. Teamwork. Building on solid foundations. Group efforts. Dedicated collaboration. What I am building is grounded in a solid foundation, so I know I can trust that it will not slip away suddenly. I am joined by others.
And we have our third, the 3.
Oh my gosh. Jacob, you're our third.
You're our synchronicity.
I am joined by others in coordinated efforts to bring forth what we have chosen to co-create. The architecture of my dreams is becoming tangible, taking shape before me, and I share my joy and pride with my partners and supporters, teachers and students. We are all learning, growing, and building collaboratively. What? Every time, man. Yeah. So that's perfect synchronicity for this week.
Yeah. Really nice. Nice to have some third energy popping in today, Jacob. Nice to connect with you, and we're wishing you well on this, I guess, your 4th week of the Artist's Way. We're just so stoked about this process and this work because of how transformational it has been for us. So, just anybody I see that is starting it or thinking about it or engaging with it in any way, I just get so excited because I know how wonderful and powerful it is, and all of the amazing things are coming to you because you're showing up for yourself in this way.
So much. And just even if the week is 1 out of 7.
If you only do your morning pages once.
Yeah.
If you only do one of the exercises, so many beautiful things will come from that.
It's just little things. And I was telling her I was holding off on like this exercise today, and then I did it, and then I was in tears. And then of course I'm like, well, why did I do that beforehand? This would have been like a week ago. I could have had this transformation.
Right. I mean, the resistance is not a joke. Let's not discount how powerful it is.
I know.
But when you overcome it, when you have the courage and you recognize and you say, I am not going to sabotage myself, I'm going to show up and give myself this gift, this luxury of this time to do this work, then the flow just picks you up and carries you along and amazing things happen. So
it's just so wonderful.
Good luck to you on this week, and we'll catch everybody next time. So much love to everyone showing up to this. Should we? My speaker went off, but we can end.
You want to end
a musical?
Oh, it's turning on again. We're about to jam out.
Nope.
There
it is.
Okay. What?
It's trying. It's failing.
Your vibration's too high.
That's our joke about technology not working.
She's just glowing right now.
Yeah, it's just because I'm vibing. So,
do you want me to hold the phone up to the camera?
It's not even playing now.
It'll be louder. All right, I can sing it for you. I thought love was only true in fairy tales. Yeah. Wait, what? What's the use in trying?
I really don't know why it's not working.
All you get is pain.
And then I saw her face. Now I'm a believer.
Without a trace of doubt in my mind. I'm in love. Ooh, I'm a believer. I couldn't leave her if I tried. Great. All right. Synchronicity. Full circle here. Okay. Thank you.